Hello and welcome to a Celtic State of Mind. It is Friday, which means you're joined by myself, Laura Bradburn, and the Wanderer returns. Jim Orr is back after a 3-month hiatus, I think you said. Jim, how you doing?
Afternoon, Laura. Good to be back. Yes.
Good to be back. You see, I think you took the wise route because we've been trying to fill the podcasts all summer when there's not been much happening, and you've come in at the right time when there's actually a game to talk about, which I think is a good tactic.
This was the chance. This summer was your Celtic detox chance, and you've all missed it. No Champions League qualifiers. Relax, chill out. I mean, it's hard to get interested in these meaningless friendlies and transfer gossip and stuff like that. So once the real action starts, that's when we're back in.
Absolutely, and it has started, and we'll get to talking about that as soon as possible. First, I just want to say thank you to everybody for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe after watching this video or while you're watching the video. It would really help us get out there. See lots of you in the comments. Hail to Inverted Wingback, a very apt name for you to bring up. Jim, we'll start with generally, because you've not been on for a while. How do you think the summer transfer business is going? How do you think the squad is looking going into the new season, given that we still have a couple of weeks where we could make signings? Where do you think we're at with that whole side of things?
Good question. I've tried to catch up with that this morning. I don't think we're any stronger than when we finished last season. I don't see any kind of new people coming in who are going to be starters. I think it'll take a wee bit of time, as it does with any season. We've got a good squad now. I don't think there's much between the top two in this league. So I think, again, it'll be down to fine margins, as it was last season. I mean, last season was such an exciting season. I said that back in February, I think. People were saying, well, we don't want excitement, we want to win the league. But, for me, there's not a lot of achievement winning the league by 20 points or so. And, it would go a long way to beat how good last season was and how exciting last season was. So they've certainly strengthened across the city. As I said, I don't see anyone who's coming in who's going to be a first-team starter. Okay start to the season. Last Saturday, Aberdeen were poor. Again, I don't think... What I'd like to see is other teams getting better. I thought Dundee United were fantastic last night. Hopefully they can keep that going for the season because, Hibs were awful last year. Aberdeen were awful last year. So we're looking for teams to be a bit better, to put them more of a challenge. In terms of what we've done, we've signed a centre-back. Don't know. We spent the guts, was it £4 million almost on a left-back from Argentina?
Yeah.
I find that a wee bit weird in terms of... I have no idea how transfers work, but if you've got £4 million to spend and you went to Argentina to buy someone, what's the kind of logic behind that? Are we saying that there's not somebody in Europe or somebody in the UK who's better than the guy? And until he starts playing, you don't know. And then he might find it hard to shift Greg Taylor after we played last week. Great game last week. So I brought in somebody who looks a bit like Greg Taylor in terms of stature. I mean, one of the things I said last season, I think we're quite a small team. So I mean, I'd rather we went for a kind of bigger left back in terms of, as I've said before, somebody who can help defend set pieces and be a threat at the other end of the park. So I think we're kind of small. Even, Cameron Carter-Vickers, Starfield, they're not that Welsh. They're not that tall, So I think we might struggle against some of the bigger, more physical teams. But the goalkeeper, Siegrist, I've liked him over the past few years. Getting Carter-Vickers and Jota, I was really surprised. I thought we'd get one of them. I didn't think we'd get both. So I think that's a statement of intent by Michael Nicholson. I think he's done really well. I mean, when we don't talk about Michael Nicholson, that means he's doing a good job. I think we've spent a fair bit of money. I think the debate the other day was about how much the Champions League tickets package is going to be. So they better be sensible about that. I think there'll be a bit of a backlash if they start charging us too much for that. So we've got the money there. We've bought well. Ange has been fantastic. I mean, this time last season, he was getting mocked right, left and centre. The media were mocking him, opposition fans. Some of our own fans were mocking him. We off to a bad start. And, after that, he was fantastic. So I just hope no matter what happens this season, whether we have a good, bad or indifferent season, that fans don't get on his back. Because the big chap has been phenomenal. And I think any comments we make about, whether we think this guy's good, bad or indifferent, I think we've always got to trust in Ange. He knows what he's doing. Maybe we're just punters who've given their tuppence worth.
Yeah,
I think it'll be a close season again. I think it'll be fine margins again. Good thing about this being on a podcast is Paul John Dykes has said before, is that if you say something on here, people are going to dig it up, even if it was a year ago or 2 years ago or 3 years ago. They say, you said that, you're a clown.
Yeah.
And somebody dug up a clip, told me about a clip that we were on about, I think it was March 21, just after Neil Lennon gets sacked. And I said we won the league this year. And my logic was about the fact that they had such an extraordinary season, and I reckon they wouldn't have that. In the same way that our invincible season, we ended up, I think, with 106 points and ended up with 84 the next season. And I didn't think they would go that far down. I said at the time, I said, they'll get about 90 points, basically. And I thought we had such an extraordinarily bad season. I thought we'll get 90 points this year as well, maybe 91, we'll just pick them. And they ended up with 89 compared to my 90. So I was pretty... So I kind of know what I'm talking about. You know, people can say, oh, guys, rubbish, you know. So dig the clip out when I 18 months or 15 months before the season started, I said we'd win the league. And the 93 points we got last season. So I think at the start of the season, I always kind of look at what I call the 3Ds, derbies, defeats and draws. So what would be acceptable at the start of a season when you look forward? As a Celtic fan, you always say, well, we want to win everything, we want to do well in Europe, blah, blah, blah. But what's acceptable? You know, if you look at last season in the derby games, we won 2, we lost 1, we drew 1. Is that acceptable this season? For me, yeah, that's fairly acceptable. Defeats, we only lost 2 other games and lost them right at the start of the season, which was phenomenal. You imagine, that's your only 2 defeats out with the derbies, and that's your only 2 defeats right at the start of last season. Would you accept that? In a heartbeat, I'd accept that. In fact, I'd accept 3 defeats, you know, over the course of a season. Kilmarnock are back up. That's a tougher game. You've got to Pittodrie, Easter Road, Tynecastle, stuff like that. You've got to lose some games. 5 draws last season. I think that's 1 too many. I'd go with 4 draws. So if you say the derbies, same as last year, 1 more defeat, 1 more draw, gets you 92 points. I think 92 points is a fair target. If we get 92 points and we don't win the league, hey-ho. You know,
Yeah.
and I think we won the league. I mean, I've said this before, and I'm going to keep saying things I've said before, is that you win the league because of 2 things. What you do, what's within your control, put points on the board, and what your main rival or rivals do. So that's with your control, how many points they put on the board. And they were sloppy last year. They were really, really sloppy last year. And I think if you were supporting them, you'd be saying that you chucked the league last year. The number of games that they chucked in terms of points, and we never. And that was that was phenomenal. You know, no point at the second half of any game did we then drop any points. You know, that's phenomenal.
Yeah, I
If
remember.
you look at what they did. Sorry, on you go.
I remember Ange saying when we had that poor start where I think we lost the first 3 away games and like we did really poorly. I think the first 7 games, and he made some comment about we're basically not going to have to not slip up between now and the end of the season, and we didn't, like you say.
Phenomenal. I mean, absolutely phenomenal. Because I mean, they did games that, you know, Ross County was like an obvious one. That was the best. I mean, when I look back on last season, and it's such a brilliant season. Such a brilliant season. I mean, I'm not one for getting a DVD of the season, but certainly I would get the DVD of last season because you couldn't have scripted it. I mean, it was so, you know, such a bad start, and the big chaps getting pelters from everywhere. And just bit by bit, they kind of get it back. And then come to Christmas, we had that. I mean, everyone was getting injured and getting COVID. And was it St Mirren game? Moffat was playing and Mikey Johnson. And then, actually, the biggest thing last year was getting the winter break moved. It was the right thing to do. But if we hadn't got the winter break moved, we're going into that Glasgow derby with, you know, Moffat and Dawson and Bain and goals, and we'd have certainly lost that game. So that was significant in terms of the winter break move. And then once we get over that, they start being sloppy. They start dropping points to Aberdeen and Ross County. And the Ross County game, that Dundee United Saturday, that's my favourite Saturday last season because my car wasn't getting fixed. My wife was using another car, so I thought I'll get a supporters bus. The closest one to me is Kings Park, CSC, so they know at the Beechwood. So I contacted them and said, no bother, come over here. So I watched the first half of the Ross County game. They won in 2-1. And you think, they could be dropping some points today. So by the time I walk over to the Beechwood, it's 2 each. And then by the time we go on the bus, Ross County losing 3-2, and you think, here we go again. They've come back again. Here we go. And then getting off the bus at Celtic Park, it's like it's like the 4th minute of injury time. It's still 3-2, and you're thinking, that's a shame. I got up to London Road, and then all you hear is all these car horns, and all the fists are going up, and you know it's 3 each, and you think, what a chance we've got today. And then you go in, and what a buzz there was, as Paul McStay was. What a buzz about the place there was that day, and then we were rubbish.
Yeah.
They were rubbish. And then Beaton gets sent off. Was that 15, 20 minutes to go or something? And you thought, we're going to lose this. We're going to lose this game. And then the big chap puts a badder through the middle, and they've got these two giant centre halves. You're thinking, what are you doing, big chap? And Jota puts the ball over, and both of them miss it. A badder, left foot control, right foot goal, and then Bedlam. And he's running towards the end that I'm at, and you're thinking, we've got a chance here. And you get back to the bus, and I usually go to the games myself, Billy no mates. So going back in the supporters bus, and it was just Bedlam. You know, you'd have thought the floor was going to cave in, and that was the day you thought, I think we can do this.
Yeah.
That's my highlight of last season. That was great. And then I think the next game was the Glasgow Derby 3-0 game. And then once we got, and it was like it was like an athlete where you're running a race, you know, and you're rubbish at the start, and then you get better and better, and then you go in that last bend, and you get your nose in front, and then you never look back. And it was such a brilliant season. It's great.
Yeah, a bit of an Eilish McColgan run, if you want to put it that way. That was
big Ange McColgan. That's it. That's who he was. So,
that was some night the other night as well. No, that was actually, I was saying to Paul the last week when we were on together, that was my favourite memory. I have a very vivid memory of, I was watching it in my kitchen, not in my kitchen, but in my mum and dad's kitchen, and I had my headphones in, and was kind of stomping about the kitchen because Beaton had been sent off, and I was trying to make my dinner and not very happy about the whole situation. And then gave everybody the fright of their life because I jumped out my skin when I put it in. So that is a memory that sticks for me as well. But it'll be great if we get more moments like that this season. Maybe less stressful, but hopefully so. Adrian Stone says, welcome back, Jim.
Thank you, Adrian Stone. Thank you, Adrian Stone.
Yeah. Marcus Mark says, hi, Laura, good to have you back, Jim. Axom's Gandalf, I don't know what that...
No idea what that means, because that sounds like a young kid type thing. I don't know. Gandalf mean old guy, old boring guy, old negative boring guy. Glamorous old boring guy.
I think it means you're a wizard of some description.
A wizard?
I'll leave it there.
All right. I'll take that. I'll take the Gandalf.
But
I'm Googling it as you speak. Yeah.
But it's interesting, you brought up a couple of points there that I thought would be good to go into in more detail. Now, listen, I know you'll probably tell me it's not worth talking about or something like that.
Talking about.
But
what are you going to say? It's not worth talking about.
We'll try anyway. You talked about, the fact that there was a bit of a cat and mouse going on last season with the way the games went, and sometimes Rangers would have a game before us, sometimes we would have a game after. And the news came through the other night that our game against Hearts has obviously been postponed to the Sunday in a few weeks' time. And I was trying to do my Alan stats bit and trying to figure out.
I think we see Alan Partridge there. That was kind of
no, my Alison Morrison stats, but yeah, no, I'm pretty much Alan Partridge the rest of the time. But I was trying to do a bit of investigation into how that was affecting us the first sort of 5 or 6 match weeks of the season, and I think I've figured out that we're playing on a Sunday something like 4 out of the 5 first match weeks, whereas Rangers are playing on the Saturday pretty much every match week for the first 5 weeks. Do you think that makes a big difference in terms of momentum and building a lead or anything like that, or is it a case of, as you said before, just kind of getting on with it?
Just going with it to win the games. I mean, I think I don't like it when games are moved for TV. I can understand the Hearts game because they're involved in Europe, and long may that continue. Long may the kind of the other teams in Scotland do well in Europe, because it's great. I mean, love watching the game last night. It looked like a great atmosphere at Tannadice. Love Hearts to do well. Love them all to do well, because they've been rubbish for so long. All these teams, and I suppose we've been rubbish as well at times, but that's great to see, because for people of my generation who can remember Dundee United when they were a force in Europe, never mind a force in Scotland, when Aberdeen were a force in Europe, that made it a competitive league. And if you've got a competitive league and you win a competitive league, for me that's a big achievement. And we're the 2 biggest teams in Scotland who've got the most money, so it should be either one that's going to win the league. And that's why, I think I said this before again, talking about winning 9 in a row. I mean, Jock Stein's 9 in a row, that was the real 9 in a row. Because the other 2 9 in a rows were kind of bought. They were the biggest teams financially, therefore it was easier to buy. I mean, great achievements, don't get me wrong, great achievements, 9 in a row, that's great. But they were the biggest, strongest, richest teams in the league, whereas back in the 60s and 70s, it was more level. You know, the players of all the clubs were paid pretty similar wages, etc. You know, so, and there was competition there. Kilmarnock were a good team, Dunfermline were a good team, etc., etc. So off that tangent here. This is quite good because Tony's not here, because I can just talk rubbish. I need to buy a wardrobe. I'm the new Tony Haggerty. I need to buy a new wardrobe and stick it behind me. But no, I don't mind games being moved because of that. I hate games getting moved for TV, and I thought it was a nonsense last week. Celtic the champions, it was Flag Day, 60,000 people there are inconvenienced by moving a game to a Sunday, and not just a Sunday, 4:30 on a Sunday.
Yeah.
And the club should have done something about that. Because, you know, there's a game at Tony Macaroni at lunchtime on the Saturday because they had a Champions League game, and that's not to do with us. You know, so 60,000 are getting inconvenience because of someone else. You know, and if they wanted to play on the Saturday, they could have played that game at 5:30 in the Tony Macaroni. But no, 60,000, almost 60,000 Celtic fans have been inconvenienced having the game at 4:30 on a Sunday. I think that's an absolute scandal. And in terms of the question, you know, Ange is one of these guys. It doesn't really matter. I mean, they play on the Saturday and drop points. There's your incentive. You know, and it's all what we do. As I said 5 minutes ago, if we do what we do, then whatever happens, happens. And that's what was really good about last season. I think Ange was so single-minded in everything that he did. You know, trust me, I know what I'm doing. Just keep on doing this. Make the players the best they can be, and do what we can. And that was really successful. But even with that, again, as I said, I don't think there's much between the teams because they were remarkably consistent last year. And I think Europe caught up with them. I think when they started losing Morelos and Hadji and people like that, you know, I think Morelos and Hadji, if they'd have played in the final, they'd have won it. You know, so, you know, luck plays a big part as well. I think we had a wee dip of form at the start of the season, and they had a real dip maybe in the third quarter of the season, and there wasn't much in it at the end of the day. So I don't see that being a big thing. I mean, if they drop points, big incentive for us, and vice versa. But I was annoyed last week at the 4:30 kickoff because just ridiculous time to have a game of football, ridiculous. And I think I understand Sky have got the contract and we have to kind of dance to their tune, but I think there's certain representations the club have to make. It's okay for me. I'll have 15 minutes from Celtic Park, but if you're coming from Ireland or, you know, the North of Scotland or England or stuff like that, 4:30 on a Sunday, I think the club have to stand up and say, you know, we're happy to switch the games around, but we're not playing 4:30 on a Sunday. Forget it. Lunchtime, okay, that kind of push, and then you've got the situation where nobody's covering the game TV-wise. This tomorrow's game, isn't it? Tomorrow at 3:00. Again, nobody's covering it. I think how bonkers is that? I mean, how amateurish is that? I mean, I would get. I mean, I would obviously, if it was on pay-per-view, I would get it. I'd imagine, I don't know, 20,000 Celtic fans, 15 quid, 300 grand. This is 300 grand somebody could make. Why aren't they doing it? Why aren't they doing it? So again, who's doing something for the fans? And I mentioned earlier, this Champions League package better not be astronomical again, because you don't want to mess the fans about. And I read something on Twitter about the Kerrydale suites now not open to certain fans, stuff like that. So I think that, you know, wee bits I'm not happy with, and certainly games this Sunday are just awful. Obviously, I'm a traditionalist. I'm a kind of great to have games at 3:00 on a Saturday. I understand TV, you need to move games about, okay, but I think they're taking the mickey playing games at 4:30 on a Sunday. And those poor Aberdeen fans, both of them, who had to, you know, travel back up the road whenever, and there was no trains, what have you, you know. So, you know, anyway, I don't think it makes a difference. To answer the question, I don't think it makes a difference.
No, I'm hoping it won't. It was just an interesting thing to observe, and somebody who was a bit more cynical than you or I might have seen something in it, which obviously isn't there. But
I think everyone reads too much into everything. You know, I mean, you can have people have too much time in their hands. You know,
I certainly do. I do.
there's much better things you can do, like go and watch Benny like Bertie. You can go and do that. That's a good thing to do. But people pour over things. I mean, I watched the game to the Tony Macaroni. The Livingston player should have been sent off. They get a goal that was onside, level at best. They lost a daft penalty the other night. You know, if you start pouring over everything, then things kind of even themselves out over time. I know that some of the stats didn't even themselves out, and you can be a wee bit cynical at times, but I think you can pour over the minutiae of stuff, and it's not really there. And if you start doing that, then you expect things to go the other way when people start looking at things that happen to your team. And I thought, if you're a cynic, you can look back and say, that Celtic get the winter break move, didn't they? That's one of the league.
Yeah.
And that was, as I said, that was the most significant thing that happened last year. It was the right thing to do because you want fans at the game. But if that was maybe, again, if it switched it around and we lost the league and thinking, they should have kept that winter break the way it was, that's ridiculous, So I don't read too many things into this stuff. Things happen. I mean, you could have. I remember last season, the first batch of games, we'd like the hardest fixtures you could get. And I think in the second quarter of this season, it's the same. So do you say, that's terrible? It can even itself. You have to play these games when you have to play them. And we should be good enough. You should be good enough to take care of most games. And as I said at the start, what's acceptable? A few defeats, a few draws, and coming out the derbies and top. That'll do us this season. And then we've got Europe as well to come as well. That'll be good as well. So yes, looking forward to the season. Good start last week, and off we go.
Well, we'll talk a bit about last week in a second. But John Lyons has obviously been spending his time better than me. Says he went to see Bendick Bertie recently.
John Lyons, he's the guy.
Wonderful show.
What a man. It was a wonderful show. I mean, the genius that is Des McLean playing Bertie Auld every night. That was the month of May for me. I was talked about doing no kind of Celtic stuff, but a couple of weeks of rehearsals, then 3 weeks on the road. I mean, this is a hobby for me. So to be on the road and going to, Aberdeen and Inverness and Dunoon and Motherwell. We go to Motherwell and Bertie's family are there. Robert, his son, and wife Susan, and his grandkids, and they're all in tears. They're all in tears, and because it was good, not bad, it was good, and then Robert came down afterwards to meet the cast, etc. And then the next day, he contacts Des to say that his mum would like to give Des Bertie's Lisbon Lions jacket.
Wow!
Thinking, just imagine getting Bertie Hall's Lisbon Lions jacket, and that was a highlight too. And all the pictures you saw of Bertie in the past few years, with his Lisbon Lions jacket on with the big yellow.
I was going to say, if you were in any doubt if he had such a thing, you saw him in it constantly. Yeah.
And it's funny, the kind of wee things, because Robert, his son, talked about his dad had a favourite pen and it always leaked. And he was telling his dad, because Bertie always used this pen, he refused to change this pen and it leaked. So the inside of the jacket's got these ink stains. So it's a genuine Bertie Hall Lisbon Lions jacket, So we're back in February at the Pavilion. So there's your Christmas presents. The person that posted that last one there, there's your Christmas presents there. Start of February, Bendick Bertie at the Pavilion. So I may
just need to do it this time, because I'm afraid if I don't go this time, it'll be the final run, because you've done a few runs now. But
we'll give a wee rest after this. Yeah, I think. But I mean, it went down really well, and I think the best comment was from Bertie's granddaughter Tina, who said it was insane, in a good way, because it is insane, and there's a lot more Bertie in it from what it was when we did it last September, I think it was. So it was loads of fun. So that was part of my summer before I went globetrotting. Yeah, so that was
excellent.
And I became Natasha Meikle. Yeah. So.
Yeah, for anybody who's not aware, we've had a bit of a competition going on over the summer to be what has now become termed the Meikler of the Month, which Jim firmly won for last month with his travels to America.
That lassie's never 2 weeks on my holiday, that lassie. So I got to be the Meikler of the Month. So this month I'm going for the most glamorous AXON presenter. I think I'll contributor. So I need the Natasha wig from Paul John's wig store, and I'll be right in there.
I don't know. I think you'll have some competition for that, Jim. I think we've got some pretty glamorous presenters. But
who? Come on, who are they? Name names.
No me.
Tony's not here anymore, so he's out. Basically, he was a favourite with his Reggie Cray hairstyle. He was a favourite, so he's out. So the field's wide open. Just get my Natasha wig and I'm in there.
We shall see. Get your votes in the comments for that one.
That's it. That's today's competition, kids. Is
right,
call us on 0800.
Or on the back of a postcard, they used to say.
I vote for Kevin Graham. There you go. So, there we go.
So we'll get back to talking about a bit of the football for a change.
Football's good.
Aberdeen was the curtain raiser for us on Saturday. I have to say, I watched it and thought it was quite an enjoyable game. I thought we were wasteful with our chances, but I thought the football I watched, I enjoyed watching. As the week's gone on, the reviews of it, I think, have got steadily more negative because I think the narrative has switched a little to the fact we were so wasteful. You were there, obviously. What did you make of the performance? Was it encouraging for you, or was there stuff there to be concerned about?
First game of the season, chill. Just chill. I thought we were nice to watch in the first half. Lots of nice passing with not much penetration up front. Second half, a bit more direct, putting them on the back foot. But they're poor. Aberdeen are poor. I mean, I think if we take our chances, we win another 5 or 6. I think what's good about this season compared to last season is this time last year we came off the back of a horrendous season. So teams like the St Mirrens and St Johnstone this world coming to Celtic Park thinking we can maybe nick a point. Whereas teams are coming out thinking, I hope we don't get it doing. I hope we don't lose 5 or 6. And Aberdeen were just, I mean, whether they just sat back and were just awful. I mean, they did a wee 10, 15-minute spell where they came out to play a wee bit, but they didn't want it doing. And when we scored in the third minute, you're thinking, here we go, 5 or 6 again. And that's what they must have been thinking. So I thought we could have been a wee bit better in the final third in the first half. We were much better in terms of play in the second half. Should have scored a few more goals. It's the first game of the season. Clean sheet, couple of good goals. Great goal by Jota. We move on to the next game. I mean, I think any season takes a few games to kind of settle down. Let's see where we are after 7, 8, 9 games. We'll have a better idea where we are. But I think we should chill out. I think you can overanalyze these things, and we live in an age where everything's overanalyzed. So with most of the ball as usual, with most of the chances, we should have won by more. We didn't. So if we won 5 or 6 nothing, that'd have been maybe a more fair reflection. We didn't. We won 2-0. That's fine. Move on to the next game, and there'll be harder games to come. And as I said earlier, I just hope these other teams get a bit better. I hope Aberdeen get a bit better because that's what you want, competition. I mean, they should be vying for third. Last year, they were 10th, they were.
Yeah.
Hibs in the same boat. So you want these teams to be good. I like to see Hearts winning, Hibs winning, Aberdeen winning, keeping it going. I'd love to see. I mean, as long as Celtic are thereabouts, I'd love to see Hibs or Hearts on top of the league after 9 or 10 games. As long as we are still in there, because the competition is good. As long as we end up winning, but that makes it exciting, and that's what you want because that's the way. I know I'm sounding like all of yesterday's here, but that's the way it kind of used to be. 80s, it was just dead exciting, and that's what's great about last season. It was just dead exciting. So, what was the question? Aberdeen. We did more than enough to win the game. I don't see why people are negative during the game. That's the thing. It's watching a game during the 90 minutes. You've got a different perception of after the game when everything's all kind of settled down, and you think, that was a lot easier than we thought. Jota's goal, was in the last 15 minutes or so. So, as I've said before, until you get that second goal, you're still in that kind of endurance zone. Waiting till the second goal goes in, and then you think, okay, that should be us now. And if you get a third goal, then it's an enjoyment time. You can kind of sit back and you look, because it's so tight. You need that second goal in any game. Otherwise, the nerves start to kick. If we didn't score the goal, then get into the last 10 minutes and maybe a corner, free kick, something like that, and who knows. And as I said 10 minutes ago, we've not been sloppy. No, we haven't dropped points in the last. Once we go in front, if we're in front at half time, we win the game.
Usually, I think as well, the one of the strange arguments I've heard from some people is talking about that second goal of, if we didn't have something special like that from Jota, then, where would we be? It might have been a different story. But my response to that is, that's why we bought him. That's why we paid the money, because he can do things like that.
If Giakoumakis scores, if Jota's a bit more calm in one of the other chats, if Kyogo's, if, it doesn't matter. That was the score. We won 2-0, so you move on to the next game. And these will be harder. I think Ross County will give us a much harder game tomorrow than we got against Aberdeen, and
Yeah.
I was just have to kind of chill and. Before we get too wound up about things, you need to wait to maybe 9. I mean, if you think last season, 6 games in, people were saying, get rid of the big chap, he's no plan B, he's an idiot, blah, 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
So, and look how that turned out. So I think you have to wait till things kind of settle down, see who comes in. And, you talked about the signings. I didn't mention it. Is it Mui, or Mu, how do you pronounce his name?
Moy, I think. That's how I've
Moy.
been saying it anyway, but yeah.
Moy, okay. Which sounds like Elanusi. The guy Moy, people are saying, oh, he's not good enough, blah, blah. He's not kicked a ball.
Yeah.
Competitive balls, but he's kicked a few competitive balls. Let's see how he kind of pans out. He may be a great player. Who knows? So I think we need to chill. Let's see how things go. I think my kind of mantra for this season is don't drop sloppy points.
Yeah.
You didn't do it last year, don't do it again this year. And if you don't drop sloppy points and you come out the derbies no worse than level, that should be enough. Let them drop the sloppy points. So hopefully that's how it'll turn out again.
Yeah, it's. I mean, that'll be the start of building a good season, like you say, is if we just keep things tight and don't
Also,
open
without
sloppy.
butting in, Lord, that
Yeah.
their defence was so good last season.
Yeah.
Will it be that good again? Chances are not. And that's when I get back to things like, if you have an extraordinary season one season, you're not going to have that next season. And things went so well for us last season. Do you think, will that happen again? Chances they might not. And they were so good last. Carter Vickers was just outstanding last season. Jota was outstanding. Kyogo, Yakimakis coming in and playing half a season, outstanding. Will they reach Abada? Will they reach those levels again? Hopefully so, but it wouldn't surprise you if they didn't. So hopefully there's other guys who can come in and do a job. I hope that James Forrest comes back this season because I like wingers like James Forrest, and if you get Yakimakis up front, he needs good service, and I think Jota gives him that. I think Maeda, to me, doesn't give him that. Maeda's got good qualities, but putting a ball over is not. And I like. I mean, when it comes to the SPFL, I'd rather have Tony Ralston playing. I think maybe Juranovic is literally a better technical player, but I think in SPFL, for me, Ralston all day long. I think his stats last year, number of goals, number of assists. I think and the quality of opposition you're playing, I think that's ideal for Tony Ralston. If you play Abada, you have to play Ralston because Abada doesn't beat anyone. Abada, he gets the ball and he waits for Tony. Pass to Tony and he crosses the ball. So I still think we need maybe one or two new signings to come in who are going to be first team regulars. I don't see at the moment. I think the first team kind of picks itself.
Yeah.
Kind of picks itself, subject to injuries. I think if once Starfelt's fit, he comes back in for Welsh. Whether the new Argentinian is going to dislodge Taylor, I don't know. I think that Hatate, O'Reilly, McGregor triumphant in the middle of the park. Jota always plays. You're going to toss up between Kyogo and Yakimakis, and then maybe that wide position is the ones. I'd love to see the big man being able to accommodate Yakimakis and Kyogo.
Yeah,
because I'd like to see how that would work. And obviously, if you do that, then that changes the shape of the whole team, and therefore, do you go 3 at the back? Do you do a kind of a 3-1, 4, whatever it is? So I'd like to see that some game to see how it goes, because it must be frustrating for everyone's not playing.
Yeah,
because Yakimakis, that last half of the season was outstanding.
And I think Kyogo as well is one of those players where, unfortunately for me, you can kind of tell if he's on a game or if he's not pretty soon into the game. And I think against Aberdeen on Sunday, for me, he was, working as hard as he ever works, but things just weren't coming off for him.
Yeah, they've obviously both got different qualities in terms of Kyogo's pace, getting behind people, and Yakimakis' physicality. And I think they would maybe complement each other. And they're two good goal scorers. And again, if you go back to the the 70s and 80s, you'd always play maybe 2, maybe 3 forwards, goal scorers. And I'd like to get back to it'd just be good to see them play 2 up front. And I think there must be. I think any home game in the league against maybe one of the lesser lights, maybe that's the game to have a go, see if it works. Because it must be terribly frustrating for either one. Because Yakimakis could have done no more in that second half of the season, and he's one of the main reasons we won the league. And he's been sub. And they'll get to a point. If I'm Yakimakis, I'm thinking, well, I'm not getting a game here. So maybe it's time for me to maybe look elsewhere. So you have to try and, I know Ange said during the week, it's not his job to keep everyone happy. But you don't want to lose players at some point because they're not getting a game. And I understand it's a squad game and all that kind of stuff, but I think it'd just be dead exciting to have the two of them up front. And if you have to tweak the system to try and accommodate that, then try it at least once and see how it goes. And you never know, because it might work really well. And all of a sudden we've got this new, because Annie's talked about trying to mix things up and maybe change things. If people think we know how we play well, we'll do something different. Well, that would be something different. And I'm sure that I'm not saying anything Ange doesn't know himself. Of course he knows himself. But from a fan's point of view, it'd be dead exciting to see the two of them up front. And I think you can be a bit more risky, take more risks at home. Because
especially domestically as well, I think.
I mean, Europe will be a different kettle of fish altogether. But I think certainly home games against the St Mirrens and the Livingstons of this world, no disrespect to them, but in terms of home games against them, we're going to have 75% of the ball. Do you need to flood the midfield for this again? Not really. So anyway, I've said my piece about that.
Abad is a one that I actually thought was an interesting one to bring up, because as you said, he had quite a good season last season. One of our favourite moments, as we talked about earlier, was the goal against Dundee United, and he did, especially when he first came to the club, seem to explode onto the scene with a few goals and was a reliable member of the team. He's come out today, or certainly yesterday, been talking to the press about the fact that he's obviously missing the influence of Nir Beaton from last season. Do you think that will have a big impact on what we see from him this season, or is it one of those cases where he's probably just got to go on with it, I would say?
I think Abada's an interesting one. Again, without Abada's contribution last year, we don't win the league. So he had a huge contribution to make. I said some things last season, and people thought I was saying something I wasn't saying. I think he's a good player, but he's not a winger. And that's why I said earlier that if you're going to play a winger, to me, your wingers get good close control and can cross a good ball, and that's not Abada for me. Abada's got an eye for a goal, and he's got a nippy kind of player, and that was his contribution last season. And as I said earlier, that he had such a fantastic season last season. Do I think it will be as good this season? Chances are it won't. And I saw some during the summer when I was checking Twitter. Occasionally there was like some talk about Abada getting sold, maybe Juranovic getting sold, whatever. I think there's an optimum time to sell players. And I think, if we'd have got a silly offer for Abada, I don't know, 15 million, something like that, then I'd have probably sold him, because I think that's a lot. That's good money for somebody who's hopefully he hasn't peaked. I'm not trying to be negative. I just think that it's such a great season. Can you follow that? I think Jota can follow that. Carter Vickers, I think, can follow that. Abada, I'm not so sure. I'd like to see him play this season, because he hasn't featured. He was a sub last week, came on last week. So having such a good squad, such a big squad now, means that certain players aren't going to get a lot of game time, and they're going to get fed up. And I think that also affects your confidence if you're not playing on a regular basis. So Abada was fantastic last season. I hope he's fantastic again this season. But as I said earlier, I think at the moment the team picks itself at the moment, and in my opinion, I don't think Abada makes the first 11. So he's going to be a sub. So when he comes on, he has to make an impact to try and force as well. For my first 11, he has to make an impact to get into that team. So it's a big season for him. Fantastic first season, that difficult second season where can you go again? Can you do it again? Hopefully he can, because I think he was named in, whatever it was, the top 30, 40 players under 21 or something in Europe, something like that. So he's certainly well thought of. He made his debut for the international team and scored again. He's a great eye for a goal.
Yeah.
So I hope he does well this season. But he wouldn't make my starting 11. But yeah, I hope he does well. Yeah, I hope he does well. And Beaton was a big factor. I think if you have somebody like that, it's good. And I was sad to see Beaton go and sad to see Rogic go, because I do think you need experience. I think I said there was a game, it was about, 10, 12 games to go. We played St Mirren, I think it was. And Ange brought on Rogic and Beaton and Forrest. I think I was on the podcast just after that. I said, I think that's the three guys who'll get us over the line because of the experience. And there was like, however many hundreds of games they played, there was about 1,000 games between them, sort of thing. Because I think you do need that experience. I think that's one of the things when I look across the city. I watched a game the other night and they played 3 new guys up front.
Mm-hmm.
And unless you hit the ground running with 3 new players, they might struggle because you want somebody with a bit of experience there. And I was quite surprised they didn't play other players that they've got,
Mm-hmm.
And I think what's good about this season is all of our team have experience last season.
Yeah.
They've won the league, they've came from behind, they've had tough patches, they've had injuries, and they've came back. And there's nothing like experience, and that will help them all this year. But I always think I kind of beat on in there, not as a starter, Rogic, not as a starter, but having them in and around the place, I think that would be a help. And if you're somebody like Lil Abada coming from Israel and you've got somebody from your own country, family man, who takes you under his wing, that was invaluable for him last year.
Yeah.
There's been players in the past, Stan Petrov comes to mind, where you're completely lost. New country, different language, different culture, different thing. And Beaton was literally one of the reasons that Abada had such a good season last season. So hopefully he's mentally tough enough to see that. 'Cause that's the bit we don't see. We don't see the mental bit of the players. I always remember the comment Ayeti made in that first season that he was living in a hotel and going to training and back to the hotel, and that was it.
Mm-hmm.
And as fans, you never see that. You always think these guys are getting paid X £1,000 a week. They should be up for everything. But from a mental point of view, it's tough. But hopefully Abada's mentally tough. That is another good season. But he'll need game time to kind of show that. So let's see what happens.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I really hope he does have that good second season, because like you, I don't think he would be in my starting 11 necessarily, but I don't think his contribution last season can be underestimated, as we said.
Not at all, yep.
Ian Matheson says, great to see Jim back. Totally agree with Giakoumakis Kyogo combo. Giakoumakis is great at holding the team up. Kyogo, the team didn't find Kyogo's runs enough. Giakoumakis laying off the ball to Kyogo makes sense to me. And Tom Hunter brings up an interesting point, says, we're crying out for a defensive midfielder. Aberdeen caught us in the break a couple of times. It's one that I've seen a lot of people say, and we've had debate on the podcast a few times about, which of our current midfielders could fulfil the role. But do you see defensive midfield as a particular weak spot for us, something we need to look at filling, especially for Europe, probably?
Well, for Europe, definitely, yeah. I mean, I think the Champions League might be a wee bit of a challenge this season. I think there's going to be a few games behind the couch this season because I think we're obviously good enough for the SPFL. I think we're more than good enough for the SPFL in terms of defensively. And that's defensive midfield or defence at the back. But for Europe, yeah, definitely. So who do you leave out then when you start doing that? Do you push Callum McGregor further forward? Because Callum McGregor is a kind of metronome in the team, I suppose. He keeps everything kind of moving. So do you push him further up and you bring in this Victor Wanyama type of player that's there to kind of destroy things and break things up and do whatever? We don't need that in the SPFL. We go forward all the time. But for Europe, yeah, definitely. And again, because we've got such a big squad now, a good squad now, you then start saying, who do you leave out? So you bring in defensive midfield player guy, you push McGregor up, do you leave out Hatate, do you leave out O'Reilly, or these other guys who can't even get a game? So it's a good thing to have in terms of who do you leave out, because this time last season, who do you put in? So it's certainly a good thing to have. What was the question again? You've forgotten it as well.
I've forgotten it as well, but about the defensive midfielder. But John Sweeney says this as well, just because you brought it up about the guys who can't even get a game. Ayeti, Julian and McCarthy need to go before the window closes, and we need to bring 2 in. Are you surprised?
That'll be a challenge, yeah.
Are you surprised, given it's been a while since you've been on the pod, that you're coming back on today and those 3 are still Celtic players at this point?
I think from a fan's point of view, it's dead easy to say get rid of them, get rid of these guys. But I'd imagine those 3 are some of the highest paid players at the club. So unless somebody else is willing to pay the money, then it's very difficult to get off the wage bill. It depends how ambitious they are. I mean, one imagines that of the 3 of them, James McCarthy's a pretty rich guy, and so money shouldn't be a kind of barrier to him going to start finding somebody. Julian, who knows? I mean, Julian sounds like quite a complex character. Ayeti is a bit of a shame because there was a game, was it Ross County scored a couple of goals
Yeah.
You know, I mean, he scored those goals. You thought, well, maybe there's a future for him. But when you get Kyogo in the team and Yakimakis in the team, and I think he's miles off it. And he's obviously a player. I mean, you don't get to their level, all three of these guys, without being good players. You know, and I think, you know, again, unless you've got to run the team, you know, I think you'd be wary of bringing back Julian in that back too, because he's not played in how long? 18 months or something ridiculous like that. You know, so
something like that. It was December of 2020 he got injured?
December 20. You're right. So if you're a team, do you take a chance in Julian? Are you wanting to pay him big wages? Are you wanting to pay a big transfer fee? That's why it's difficult to get rid of him. So Ayeti, you know, how old is Ayeti? Can't be that old. 23,
I
24.
don't know off the top of my head. Let me just check this out, because before we start going on about it, I think he's one of these guys. He's not as old as you would think.
Just like me, actually, not as old as you think. So he's obviously a player. He's scored goals at the highest level, so there's something there. And again, maybe if he gets a run in the team, maybe if there's an injury crisis and Kyogo and Yakimakis are out, he gets a run in the team and he scores some goals, all of a sudden we've got a player there. Yes, they have to be moved on, but that's kind of easier said than done, I think. And I think we've got a squad that is about 30 we have now.
Yeah.
Something like that kind of region. I find that fascinating in terms of how you kind of balance that. How many defenders you need, midfield players, how many utility type players, and people who can play two positions. That was the thing about the left back we bought. You think, or left wing back, that's where he plays. Whereas, you know, if we'd have bought maybe a bigger left back, I'm not saying Calvin Bassey, but somebody like a big unit who could play left side of the defence or in the centre, then you've got that utility. You get 2 for 1 type of thing. So the three of them, it'd be great to move them on, release a lot of wages, would give the big chap some more money to bring another player in. But I think we've done really well so far in terms of what we've spent, and you have to balance the books at the end of the day. And with the Champions League money coming, I know this is off a big tangent now, don't be greedy, Celtic, in terms of that season, in terms of that 3-match package. Do not be greedy. Sounds like a woman, don't be greedy. But need to move them on. Easier said than done, and hopefully we can. But there has to be a willingness for them to go and for someone else to want to buy them. So again, that's out with their control. Easier said than done. And again, even when you want to buy players, we should buy him. Well, again, you see factions involved. They want to come and the team want to sell them. So that's the kind of complex nature of football. Yeah, I think we've done really well. Transfer market wise, I think we've done really well so far. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see how Maurice Jens fits in, because he is, well, I mean, I look up at most of the defenders in terms of height anyway, but he did seem like a pretty tall individual when I was in the room with him a few weeks ago. So, yeah.
Well, you were sitting in the room with him? Aye.
I was,
What's this about?
I don't know if you've heard, because I have not told many people, but yeah, I was at his press conference, whatever. Yeah.
Oh, in a professional capacity. All right. I get you now. Sorry.
Yes.
I was sitting in the room with Maurice Jens. I thought, well, aye, that's interesting. Yeah, I said earlier, I think we're quite a small team, and I think we don't offer enough up front. Good to see him get a goal from a corner last week. That was unusual. But
yeah.
So yeah, we need more, more kind of more threat at set pieces, and certainly if big chap plays in, he'll give us that, because we certainly need to score more goals from set pieces. And I was going to say defend set pieces better, but we actually defend set pieces pretty well. So that's good. So yeah, so Jens will kind of, again, until the guy's played 6 or 7 games, I mean, you can't really judge the guy in a couple of meaningless games or however many games he's played so far.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Anyway, Ayeti, for the record, is 25. He was 25 in February, so
24.
So yeah, still got a good few years, hopefully at the top of the game for him. Whether it's at Celtic or not remains to be seen, but I doubt.
Also depends where these guys' minds are at. I mean, if you're Ayeti, I mean, what do you want to do? I mean, chances are he's made enough money that he's secure for life. So what's your next move? Do you want to get back into the national team? Do you want to achieve your potential, or are you happy just to take a wage packet? And so we've got no idea how the minds of a football player works. Particularly at that level, getting silly money. I mean, it's silly money these guys are getting.
Yeah,
silly money. Anyway, that's my rant over for today.
Speaking of silly money, and before we go on to looking at the Ross County game ahead of tomorrow, some of the rumoured prices for these Champions League packages for people who are spending upwards of £600 for their season tickets. I mean, the figures are eye-watering for the extra package that I've seen going around. Obviously, it's not been confirmed by Celtic
What have you
as yet.
seen?
And
What have you seen?
well, I've seen, average of, £80 a game for the
No,
3
no,
home
no,
games and
no,
that
no,
kind of
no,
thing.
no. It can't be that. That can't be that.
So,
40 quid a game, 3 games, 120 quid. That's the answer.
yeah.
That's the answer. Anything more than that, you're taking the mickey, basically.
Do you think it'll be
Champions League money coming
dictated?
in.
Do you think it'll be dictated by the draw? Do you think they'll wait and see the draw before they decide? If we end up in
That'd be
some kind of
scandalous. If
group
they
of
do that, that'd be scandalous. Basically, you've got 54,000 season ticket holders. The vast majority of them are on the home cup ticket scheme. So that'll be automatically charged to them. If they're saying, if we draw Real Madrid, we're going to make it more expensive, I think that's scandalous. I think £40 a game is reasonable at any stage. At the current stage with energy crisis and everything else that's going on, cost of living, I think you're taking a mickey if you're charging more than 40 quid for a game. I think that's an insult to the supporters. So £120, if you're listening, Michael Nicholson, that's the number. If you go more than that, I mean, you said 80 quid a game. That's not going to happen. 80 quid, 240 quid. That's double.
That's not founded on anything concrete. That is just a figure I've seen being bandied about, and the fact that people would even think that might be a possibility was.
One would like to think that the club are taking soundings for this, that they're speaking to supporters groups. Hopefully, they're doing something like that. And the answer to that would be not too high. Maybe if we got to the quarterfinals or something like that, you say, all right, fair enough, right, 50 quid a game, something like that. But, after the support that the club had last season, they've sold out season tickets again. They're in the Champions League getting big money. And I know you've got to balance the books, and I know they've spent a lot of money this summer. But I think you're taking advantage of the fans if you charge them silly money for a season ticket package, because, there's people there going with kids, maybe kind of, husband, wife, a couple of kids going to the games, and there's that campaign that always kind of surfaces down the game. 20 is plenty. 20 is plenty, I think, for any football match. 20 is plenty. We compare it to other things in life. I'm going to the theatre tomorrow night. It's £13. Admittedly, it's the cheap seats. £13. You're going to see a musical play. It's been in the West End of London. £13. And if they're going to charge 40 quid, or let's say it's 50 quid to go and see us play Ferencvaros or something like that, it's just out of kilter, basically. And I hope they're taking soundings. I hope, because when you listen to people like Kevin Graham, he'll talk about he's been on these supporters group for years, and they don't listen. And they particularly don't listen when things are good. Things are good just now. I hope they are listening. I hope they are taking soundings, and I hope they pitch it at something reasonable. And for me, if 20's plenty, then 40's, for a European game, I think that's enough. I think that's enough. So, and I just think it used to be the people's game. It's not anymore. And without sounding like this old, those were the days, guys. But players are getting 300 grand a week, 400 grand a week. The whole thing's just completely and utterly bonkers. So the fans are Celtic. Yeah. The fans are Celtic. So don't take advantage of them like that. Pitch it as something reasonable. Give something back. I get it that there's no Champions League qualifiers, therefore they'd have made a bit of money through that, and therefore they're not really losing that. But there's maybe an opportunity to make some money they haven't done. But don't take advantage of the fans. That's my plea to the Celtic.
I mean, from a business point of view as well, they'll make all that back and more just from being in the group stages, which they haven't been for 5 years at this point now anyway. So yeah,
I think the fans are Celtic. Don't take advantage of them. End of.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair, and that's before you even factor in souvenirs for the kids or food and drink or whatever you want to.
You've only got to look at last week. People were posting that in social media, how much the prices have went up, and how kind of scandalous it is to a pie at Celtic Park now, a cold drink now, stuff like that, kind of pizza that's falling apart, sort of thing. So I think there's a whole customer service type of thing that has to be better. I tend not to buy food and drink when I'm at Celtic Park, but obviously people who do that are unhappy. You're taking kids to the game. Kids want something to eat. Kids want something to drink. It's an expensive day out, you know, and it'd be great to take kids along to a Champions League match under the lights when the spotlight goes on, the huddle and Champions League music and daddy. And yet they'll spend the money on the pizzas and the pies and all that stuff, but don't charge them silly money in terms of a match ticket. Don't do that. You've been warned. Don't do that.
Don't do that.
I'll send Tony Haggerty out to see you.
Speaking of which, match tickets and matches, we'll close out the show today talking a little bit about the Ross County game tomorrow. It's an away trip to Dingwall for us reasonably early in the season. Never an easy place to go for us. How do you see it panning out, Jim?
I thought they were unlucky last week against Hearts from what I've seen. They did remarkably well last season, so whatever you think of Malky Mackay, he's obviously done a really good job up there. They lost their top scorer, but brought in a couple of pretty handy players. I talked earlier about dropping sloppy points. You wouldn't expect to drop points against Ross County away. That would be bad if we were to drop points. But I think it'll be a good game. It's just a shame we can't see it. Again, that's kind of scandalous. I think we'll win. I mean, but I think it'll be a good game, tough game, maybe something 3-1, something like that. I'd like to see Yakimakis back. They're a big physical team. I think he'd be good to have tomorrow. I wouldn't venture too far from the team last week. Maybe Yakimakis for Kyogo. Maybe like see Forrest back for Maeda. Because if you're putting a big chap up front, you need good quality crosses. And I think, okay, James is didn't have a great season last season, out through injury, but the guy's a legend. You know, the guy's a great player. He can beat a man, he can cross, and that's what we need from both flanks. Jota can do that all day long. We need somebody on the other side. Maeda's got lots of really good qualities, but I don't think he's much of a crossover ball, you know. So Forrest for Maeda, Yakimakis for Kyogo. The rest of the team kind of picks itself. I think. Sorry, Ralston for Juranovic. I think that's kind of Ralston's game. And get back to the scene of the crime, where one of the highlights of last season, obviously. So I'm sure Tony would enjoy playing there. And again, it's going to be a physical game up there. So maybe Tony gives a bit more physicality than Juranovic. So yeah, that's my changes for tomorrow. No doubt Ange will be listening and not doing that. And I think we have to keep winning. I mean, just need to win up to the Glasgow Derby, basically keep the momentum going. And if we win that game, that puts a wee bit of daylight in front of it. But yeah, I mean, I never get too excited in a season until we've maybe done the first quarter of the games, and then we can see where we sit. Then, you know, there was bits last season, fans were losing the plot. I remember like Yakimakis missing the penalty against Livingston. Well, that cost the league. That's terrible. Let's wait and see how things pan out. So we need to start the big man, because as I said, I think he needs a start, and that's an ideal game for him. And I think we'll win. Yourself, what do you think?
I'm Ross County has become one of these weird things, especially away from home. Although they've scalped us at home as well a couple of times. I remember us going out of the cup a few years ago with Callum McGregor at left back against them. I think they're a bit of a bogey team for us, but if we're a bit more clinical and a bit more ruthless with our chance taking, as long as we play the same as we did last week, I think we're probably safe. We just need to make sure the chances we create are ones we actually put away. And hopefully with Yakimakis being in for Kyogo, I would agree that would be a change I would make to hopefully make sure that happens.
I think we look at both teams, the respective resources, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it should be no contest. I think that's why Malky Mackay was a bit sarky when Tony scored the winner, when all the fans went mad, and he said, he made some sort of comment, it's like, you know, they're all going mad, and it's just Ross County type thing. So we shouldn't be dropping points up there. Again, as I said earlier in the podcast, our main rivals were sloppy up there. That cost them. So whichever team is the least sloppiest will win the league. So let's not be sloppy tomorrow. That'll be Ange's words when they go there. Let's not be sloppy today, guys.
It's got a bit more of a ring to it than we never stop. Let's not be sloppy.
I'll get that in a t-shirt. Yeah, let's not be sloppy there, because that could actually apply to loads of different things, lots of non-football things. Let's not be sloppy, people. You know, let's not spill your dinner down your t-shirt. Let's not be.
Indeed. We'll see how sloppy we are tomorrow with the live match coverage, Jim. You will no doubt be maintaining your dignity and not appearing on that, I'm sure. You've warned me previously about my
Oh, never do that. Never do that. So, what are you going to do then? What are you going to watch?
Oh, I've no idea. No idea. I'll probably. The ironic thing is, we'll be doing the live match coverage and then probably going off here to listen to it in the radio or something. I don't know.
Aye.
But it'll be interesting anyway.
It will be.
Thank you
Anyway,
very.
opportunity lost by that pay-per-view. You know, $300,000 going. Nobody wants that.
Listen, we were talking about that in the group chat. Obviously, for multiple reasons, there's members of the Axom team who don't have season tickets, and both myself and Jared said we would willingly pay for some sort of media season ticket to get exclusive access to the games and interviews and extra documentaries and whatever. And to me, that's money sitting there waiting to be made. But the club don't seem to be interested in investing in that.
Yeah, bizarre. Anyway, there's money out there. There's a fanatical support. Say what you like about Scottish football, people go and watch it. And to deny them that, I just think it's just, again, Sky need to take a long hard look at it. But we signed the contract. That was your Neil Doncasters of this world, where BT were a fantastic service. BT loves Scottish football. Sky aren't bothered, and we're left with Sky, and they can't be bothered. So this won't be the first time I think this season we end up in a situation where you can't see a game, and there's a massive demand for it, and people are willing to pay. It's totally and utterly bizarre. And no other form of business would you say you've got a captive audience, there's a massive demand for it. You can make $300,000 if you do a couple of simple things. No, we're not going to bother. You're thinking, bizarre, totally, utterly bizarre. Anyways, last rant over for today.
If you want us to do it, Celtic, get in touch and we can string something together, I'm sure. Maybe not quite the quality that you would be looking for from a broadcast, but we can do our best.
Absolutely.
Jim, thank you for joining me today. It's great to have you back. Thanks everybody in the comments for joining me. It's good to be back in the swing of things, back in the football season, and let's see what happens tomorrow. Catch you.